Entering the Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. I've missed all of you football people out there, but it's time to start dipping my toe back in the water. We got rankings coming up. The football season is slowly approaching. And if you've missed out on the past, 5 months of giveaways because you hate golf and don't like watching football, or you have no interest in the challenge or MMA or anything we do here on the Pat Mayo Experience, I know there's a lot of you out there that are football only. And this one, and probably a show a week now, getting back into it before we ramp back up to our 7 days a week coverage in football season, will be for you. What you need to do to get into a draw for 20 DK dollars. There are 2 ways to do so. Number 1, smash the like button for this episode. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section and tell me which rookie is going to have the most impact in fantasy football in 2019. Boom, you're in a draw for 20 DK bucks. Winners announced on next Monday's show. Or if you listen to this and you're like, oh, fuck all this golf stuff. I mean, hey, there's football. I'll download that one. Now you're listening. Thank you. I appreciate that. But if you subscribe, rate, and review the Pat Mayo Experience 5 stars, DraftKings handle, something nice about the show, you too will be in a draw for 20 DK bucks. Also, I'm going to post my rankings up on Instagram at the PME. If you go heart the photo and follow at the PME and leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, you too will be in a draw for 20 DK dollars. I'm just giving away money. I'm kind of psyched to talk about football. What happens is you do so much football for like a 6-month period that you kind of get worn out from it just a tiny bit. Now I'm like, I've really put the blinders on. I haven't delved in too much. I've done my research, but I haven't talked to anyone else about it so far. So I'm like fresh at this. I'm excited to talk about football season again. And we're going to be talking about rookies today. We're going to go position by position, talk about the impact that the rookies will have on their team, and then fuse them all together. And maybe we'll talk a little bit of Dynasty too. I'll put that in the time codes if you want to go check it out. But there is one person, if I'm talking football, and I need to talk about rankings. He is an excellent ranker. He knows a ton about football. He writes for theathletic.com. He's at All In Kid. It is Jake Ciely. Long time no talk, pal.
It's been way too long. I missed these shows. Actually, somebody tagged me on Instagram. It was like the top 12 follows in fantasy football. And then it was like, oh, I can't believe I left that All In Kid. And somebody's comment was like, he's not on video enough, like Pat. And I was like, that's kind of who I only do videos with.
I cannot imagine being like, hey, who are the top 12 fantasy football follows? If my name ever appeared on one of those lists, those people are a fucking farce. They have no clue. Well, you deserve to be on there. If people are like, hey, pay attention to Pat, like, you're probably losing.
It's entertainment factor. Don't sell yourself short. You know that. But it was also the 12 that they had was like Brad Evans, the footballers, all 3. It was all video people. So that's why he was trying to make that's why Jake wasn't in there. I appreciate the shout out, but you deserve to be in that list. It was 12 of the best video follows in fantasy.
Oh, video follows. Oh yeah. Well, there's only 12 of us who do it. So I can see myself being a part of that list. That makes a lot more sense. Fortunately, I have good guests on, and they're pretty intelligent, and I can ask like a decent question or two before I'm like, screw Mark Ingram, he's terrible. Screw Jared Cook, don't ever draft him. I mean, I'm not changing my position on these things. I mean, if you've tuned into the show over the years, you know where I stand on this stuff. It's you who is, one of the world's best fantasy football rankers. How are the fantasy baseball rankings going? I haven't watched a single second of baseball this year, and it couldn't be more freeing.
It's kind of nice to not have to do as much as I used to. It's my taste has started to move a lot more towards football because football, as you know, for us has become year round, and it just never stops at this point. And it's such a trudge to go through. You change. Like, I give everybody a real quick insight. I always, this, Pat, I rank to my projections, and that's why I feel like I've been accurate. Well, with fantasy baseball projections, the one thing about them is you can be much more accurate because it's a very specific formula to get what the value of a player is. But the thing is, if one person has like one extra stolen base, it moves like 15 people. So it's a lot more work for a lot less results. But I finished top 10 again last year, but not like the number 1 back-to-back. I'm still, I think, number 1 and number 2 over the entire career, which is, look at me. But I mean, it's because it's a formula. Baseball, if you're good at math and good at predicting stats, you're going to win more often than not.
Yeah, and in football, if you do these preseason rankings, you just pray to God your guys don't get hurt before like week 2. And then you're like, all right, here we go. My rankings are looking super solid. So let's dig into this. I want to start with the running backs from the rookie class and who can make the biggest impact. It seems like there is one obvious choice, and then there's a bunch of like clusters right around. Who do you think is by far the number one choice? And it's probably going to be Josh Jacobs in Oakland. It looks like the job is his. We think, at least right now, with Gruden under center. Or Gruden coaching, we can put him in the backfield. Does he get all 3? Well. Yeah, maybe just put Gruden at quarterback. Couldn't be any worse than Derek Carr. I'm not even saying David Carr anymore. I'm locked into Derek Carr. But with Jacobs, is he going to be an every down back in Oakland?
Mostly. Here's the thing: is you've heard a lot of people. The immediate pushback was, "Well, Gruden doesn't use a bell cow." That's actually a complete fallacy. If you look back at Gruden's career, first of all, he's never had that many running backs who's had a skill set like Jacobs where you can turn him into a workhorse. The second thing is people forget the very first rookie season of Cadillac Williams' career, 290, not touches, Pat, 290 carries in 14 games before they got the dude hurt, who, by the way, the very next year rolls out again for 14 games and got hurt again and still gives him another 200 and change carries. He gave Ernest Graham 222 carries in 10 starts.
Ernest Graham! I totally forgot that guy existed. We used to just call him E. Graham because we didn't know who he was.
Well, maybe did you remember this other one too? He gave Tyrone Wheatley over 200 carries 2 years in a row.
That was in Oakland though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So were those the Charlie Garner years as well?
I think he mixed in for
one. Who was the other random Oakland running back? It was like one of my first years playing fantasy. It must have been like 2003.
Lamont Jordan?
Lamont Jordan. That's exactly who it was. Then he went to the Jets eventually.
Yep.
Lamont Jordan.
Exactly. So the point is, and if you look at the names I'm mentioning here, none of them are like otherworldly. Like Cadillac Williams probably could have had a pretty decent career if he didn't get hurt. But most of them, the point is when he's had the opportunity, he's actually ridden his lead running backs. It's just whether or not he's had that. You don't draft Josh Jacobs where they did. You don't spend that draft capital. You don't have a talent like him for what we're all assuming and judging Jacobs as a true talent. 3-down running back, a better pass catcher than people realize, and then not invest in him when you have like DeAndre Washington and they just brought back Doug Martin because they had an injury to Isaiah Crowell. Like, look, he's going to touch the ball 20 times per game. The only way he doesn't is if the defense lets him down and then they just don't have enough time on the field.
And I guess Jalen Richard's still there too, right?
Yeah, they still have a bunch of ancillary pieces.
So we're going to have a situation where if they do get down by a ton, there's the chance that they go to Rocket Richard because they just love throwing like little dump offs to him. You would think they would do that to Jacobs after spending the draft capital that they did on him.
Right.
But basically you can pencil him at least into the first 2 downs on the field and all the goal line work. And then what he gets in the receiving game is like a bonus.
Yeah, I'll compare him to James Conner with better pass catching, not a ton, but better pass catching. The fact of like, if the Steelers are down, which we probably don't expect a lot of, we would see a bigger share for Jalen Samuels. We were probably talking about 65, 70% for James Conner at the season's end. Week to week, it might vary a little bit. So to your point, if they are down, maybe Jalen Richard in that game ends up getting 30% versus 20%. So basically like that. I think that's a good comp is like a James Conner.
Where would you slot him in the overall running back ranking? So I'm just looking at it right now and like sort of the ranges. Like behind Devonta Freeman, that seems pretty sensible to me. Phillip, you would have Jacobs over Devonta Freeman?
Yep.
Okay.
I actually have my half point PPR out already. I have Jacobs at 13 in front of Todd Gurley by 1.
Okay, is that ahead of like Leonard Fournette?
Yep, Fournette 16. Look, Devonta Freeman, if you told me he was even playing 14 games, not even 16, I would put him higher. It's just the guy, this many concussions at this point of his career, and the fact he wants to run head first, I just can't expend that capital on, like, look, if I told you to place the over-under bet in Vegas, would the odds would be negative. Like you'd be on the downside to bet him of making it through 16 games, as in he would be like minus 150 to play 10 games.
Yeah, he's like a minus 500 favorite like 8 years from now to tell the truth at some sort of committee. And that's not going to be good news for him. But you're looking at Jacobs right now as like a late second round, early third, mid third round pick in like early drafts.
I'm willing to invest there. You don't have to yet. The drafts I've been in to this point, you don't have to spend that high. It's more of late third.
I think late third works. Like I'm just looking at Fantasy Pros right now and just seeing where he drops in. Maybe these haven't been updated for a while. They have him at number 31, which seems kind of ludicrous. But like Sony Michel is at 17. Like, I'd take him over Sony Michel. Philip Lindsay, I don't really know what's going on with his injury, how Flacco being there, or even if they make the move at quarterback at some point to make that switch, how that affects him too much. Was he just, was he a one-season wonder? Well, I guess we'll find out. And that's going to be, that's going to decrease his draft value, because I think that other people have those questions too. Like, I'd take him over Cohen, Ice Cream Cohen for sure, Chris Carson for sure. Like,
yep.
Geis, I guess, is an interesting situation. So yeah, I can see how he's in like the top 20 for sure mix, and maybe the top 15 mix. I understand that argument. I guess it depends on what you think he's going to do in the passing game. As you know, I'm only thinking about this from PPR point of view.
Right. And that's fair. And I did a half-point PPR, but for one is I have Derrick Henry at 15 and him at 13. So I think that's a decent. That's a decent argument to have, because, I mean, look, we bring up questions, and yes, we can look at this and say, well, LaFleur's gone. So we assume that the Titans saw what we saw at the end of last year. But let's be realistic about last year. That game stretch that he had was 50% of his fantasy points. That one game, which I know we never throw that one game was 24% of his fantasy points for the season. So I understand we expect Derrick Henry to be in the role that I'm basically saying Josh Jacobs is going to be in. But Deion Lewis is still proven to be a talent. Deion Lewis, in my opinion, is a bigger threat to Derrick Henry than anybody behind Josh Jacobs is. And that's the only reason he's only slightly in front of him, but I think that's a good area to have him.
Unless we get some sort of gigantic discount on Derrick Henry, there's not a situation where I can envision myself rostering him and drafting him in a season-long fantasy league. I'll play him on DraftKings. That's fine. And I'll, eat the 55 points or the 0 points. That's the type of player I really hate to have on my season-long team. Like, no trust week to week when it comes along to it. You're
lucky I'm on this show, Pat, because I almost committed suicide last night because I drafted Derrick Henry and Jared Cook on the same team.
Oh my God. What? Oh my God. What round did you get Derrick Henry in? Like the 5th?
4th, mid-4th.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
I can't at mid-4th. I can't pass on him there.
Yeah, just wait 5 rounds and take Deion Lewis.
Hey, you know what? I'm not going to say you're wrong, but when I was also my second running back, because I went 3 wide receivers in the first 5.
Oh, is that back now? And now that there's so many running backs, are we back to 0 RB? Is that a thing that's happening?
No. Well, I think it is depending on where you're drafting. Like, I was in 2 different PPR mocks already. I was one for Pro Football Focus and one for the Football Diehards. And the Pro Football Focus, despite being full PPR, not even half point, full PPR, the first 9 picks were running backs. The Pro Football Focus or the Football Diehards was more balanced. It was 6 in the first. It was the first 6 picks, and then the next 6 picks, 4 of the 6 were wide receivers. So it depends on where you are. I think if you're back at the 9-10 pick, you can start wide receiver, and possibly even wide receiver, and take your first running back in the 4th round.
I got a weird question for you. In a full point PPR, is Travis Kelce a first round pick?
Yes. Am I going to do it? No. If he's there in the middle of the 2nd, I'll do it. And the truth is put him at the wide receiver position. He finished as a wide receiver 1. He finished inside the top 10. So that's how you can make the argument, especially with the disparity. You're getting the advantage of everybody else and how terrible the position is. Not to mention, what we're dealing with of whether or not that guy ends up playing for the Chiefs this year. We're all assuming he doesn't. Kelce should see an uptick and even usage from last year. So he deserves to be there. It's still, you're going to have to hit somewhere anytime you take a tight end that early. This is the Gronkowski argument.
But that is no... I mean, it actually feels like Kelce's far safer than Gronk has been for like the past 4 years based on the situation that he's in, his age, and the production that he's put up. You just pray that he doesn't get hurt. He gets hurt. But to say that you need to hit somewhere, no matter if you're going to win any fantasy league, like if you draft a guy in the 1st round, he needs to be good, whether it's a running back, tight end, quarterback, or wide receiver. They have to come through on where they come in. You have to hit a 9th round pick somewhere, a 13th round guy that ends up becoming a top 4 guy. It doesn't matter who you pick in the 1st round. You need those guys to fill out your roster.
You do, but the difference is the drop off from the capital you spend. It's easier to make up at the tight end position if you fall. Like if you take the running back,
you need to luck into the right guy at tight end if that's going to happen. Like if you picked up Eric Ebron after 2 weeks last year and rode with him, then yeah, you close that gap. But it really does feel like the gap between Kelce and then down to like Ertz and Kittle and then everyone else is pretty substantial.
No, just what I was going to say is it's the hit. It's not the hit as in you hit your draft. You're right. Kelce plays 16 games. He deserves to be a 1st rounder. My point being of what I was going to say was hitting is if something goes sideways, like if he misses 4 games, which can happen to anybody. But that was my point is It's if something goes sideways, as if this team completely falls apart, Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, or maybe all of a sudden this offense just doesn't work and everybody just double coverage and triple coverages Kelce, and all of a sudden he has a down year. The point, what I was going to say is it's a lot easier to make up your first round cost of a running back or wide receiver than it is if you invested in a Kelce, because now you're weaker at another position. You're not making up a Kelce. Like you said, the Eric Ebron thing, that doesn't happen regularly. It's not, you're usually picking up a top 5 tight end off the waiver wire, because that was different because Jack Doyle got hurt. So my point being is if something goes sideways. Now, if he plays 16 games, he should be a first rounder. End of discussion.
The rest of the running backs, we got Miles Sanders in Philadelphia. We got David Montgomery, flea market.
Living rooms, bedrooms, diners. We got it. You need it. You'll find it. It's just like amen. Hey, hey.
He is in Chicago, taking away from my main man, the Hebrew Hammer, Ice Cream Cohen. And they did get rid of Jordan Howard, and now Jordan Howard goes to Philly, and then they draft another running back to presumably supplant him or just work in that fun Doug Peterson system of, hey, we have 5 running backs, let's use them all, and just frustrate everyone. So it seems like there's a gigantic gap, at least in terms of safety, between Jacobs and the next tier, but it seems like these two are on the next tier with Sanders and Montgomery.
They are. And I don't think David Montgomery is that far away, because if you go back to the Jordan Howard thing, and if you look at, there's a couple factors here. One is people don't even realize how many touches and carries that Jordan Howard had last year. He had 250 carries, 270 touches. That's Jordan Howard, and Jordan Howard in a mediocre Jordan Howard season. This team, Matt Nagy, everybody's already come out and they said they see David Montgomery being a more valuable piece of this offense than Jordan Howard was, which is not wrong for you. Look at the two talent sets and say, you know what, Montgomery is better than Jordan Howard. But even if, so the reason I bring that up is like, that's the upside. That's the upside of David Montgomery being a mid to high RB2 and surprising a lot of people. The downside, the floor seems to be 270 touches, because even if they say, you know, well, this is all coach speak, and they only give him the Jordan Howard role, that's 270 touches and probably a better efficiency at that 270 touches. So I actually think, in my opinion, if I'm just drafting for this year, it's Jacobs, then Montgomery by himself, then Miles Sanders, and then the rest, because I feel a lot better. I feel like Montgomery's in the middle of the two. I feel like he's a lot better of Sanders because of everything you just said. The upside's there, but we've clamored for this and said, oh, Jai is going to be different this time, and this guy's going to be different this time. Doug Peterson does Doug Peterson, and he's going to not stop doing Doug Peterson. So I actually like Montgomery kind of on his own island almost.
So what do you make of Sanders then? What would you say is the probability that he just becomes the guy in Philadelphia and plays, let's say, I don't know, 60% of the snaps?
I would say I'd give that about 60 to 70% chance. I think there's a good chance that happens. And there's two downsides to it. Is that consistently, and it kind of averages out at the end of the year, where like 1 week it was 75, next week it's 50, that kind of thing. That's Doug Peterson, especially if they're going pass heavy. And you look down that roster, they still have a myriad of running backs. He is definitively the best talent. He is also a really good fit for this offense in the way that he runs and a power scheme and all that type of stuff. If you look at what he did replacing Saquon Barkley too, like he's got the talent. It's whether or not the usage is there. My only issue is I don't have a problem getting behind Sanders, and I don't even have a problem drafting him as a mid to low RB2. It's the people that are so caught up in the hype from last year and the year before that always try to make these arguments that this time it's going to be different, everybody. And I see him go as RB15 off the board, because now you've just bought all the risk and there's zero upside for him.
Yeah, that seems to be a bit tough. I guess it depends on where he goes. Like, where did he go in those drafts that you just did?
I don't know. Let me check. I gotta have to. You speak a little. I'm telling you to do your show while I pull it up. I didn't have that tab ready. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just very curious about, like, is he getting so much like juice right now where it's, oh well, Jacobs is going in the middle of the 3rd round and Montgomery's going in at the end of the 4th round, and then all of a sudden Sanders is also going at the end of the 4th round, or is he a guy that you're potentially going to be able to get in like the 7th round? Because I doubt that ends up happening.
No, he was in the 4-5 turn on both. One, he went as RB28, and the other one, he was RB24, which are both fair prices. They're fair. You're not really getting a much discount there, but there's still room for him to improve and become an RB16, 15 if he does end up being the guy that they use 60 to 70% every single week. But I think that's a fair price. The problem is, as mentioned, if he's going up near Jacobs into the 3rd, 4th round turn, and then where's the upside at that point?
So who are the rest of the running backs that we should actually have on our radar here? I'm looking at it, and it doesn't seem like there's many with a clear path right now. Darrell Henderson in Los Angeles,
I am a huge.
but
Darrell.
what do we do with Gurley? I'm so Todd Gurley's going to remember when 2 years ago everyone was off Gurley, and then he ended up becoming the best player in fantasy. That everyone who drafted him at pick 24 won their league. It feels like he could be that guy again. Or if you are the guy that takes him in the middle of the second round and oh no, Gurley's going to be fine, that he absolutely sewers your team. It's a very dicey prospect when it comes to Todd Gurley.
Those are the only two outcomes. This is a binary outcome situation, Pat. You're 100% right. It's either Todd Gurley goes back to being a top 3 running back, potentially he was number 1 still in front of Barkley last year, despite missing those games. So it's either he goes back to being number 1-ish running back, or a complete lost season the end of last year, and then that's the downside. That's why I have him right behind Jacobs, and people are going to call me crazy for that. But at this point, maybe we know something by training camp and then preseason, and we see him actually on the field, and then he'll of course move up. No question in my mind. Am I spending a first rounder on him as of today? Absolutely not. And that's the question there. So the reason, 2 things that I love Darrell Henderson was, when I was saying I love him, was I love the talent. There was only 2 running backs I had in tier 1 before the draft. It was Jacobs and Darrell Henderson. So Darrell Henderson, talent-wise, I wish he would have landed somewhere else. To a degree, this could end up being an amazing situation. Then also, though, we heard Sean McVay say that he sees Malcolm Brown as a 3-down running back. Now, I'm hoping that's coach speak. But on the flip side, in that same conversation, he also said they've been looking for a complementary explosive weapon like Darrell Henderson. So my concern there is, if Gurley goes down, does Darrell Henderson become the lead? The way that McVay was talking, at least as of right now, sounds like he doesn't. It sounds like it turns into Malcolm Brown, with Darrell Henderson seeing a larger percentage, just not as the lead. So I love him as a talent. I don't exactly love the situation. I know there's a lot of upside there. The one you didn't mention, who I love as of today, that I've been getting a lot of drafts in the 9th, 10th round. 2 years he's been in the league. Leonard Fournette has not finished the season. Raquel Armstead is on all of my teams.
Really?
Yeah. I keep telling you, this is kind of similar to, not quite D'Angelo Williams when people were drafting him behind Le'Veon Bell, as in the 5th or 6th round. I'm not going that far, but 9th, 10th, 11th round, depending on if it's PPR, he'll fall back further for me into the 11th, non-PPR higher. But the guy runs like Derrick Henry should, or like Derrick Henry did at the end of last year. Obviously, his pass catching chops are not there, but you're telling me that if Leonard Fournette does what he does for the past 2 years and misses games, Raquel Armstead's going to be an RB2. It'll be a lower one because he doesn't catch, but he's going to be an RB2.
I mean, he has the best first name I've ever heard too. So that always works. That's going to add 2 rounds. If you start hyping him up and they're like, Raquel, here we go. I need this guy on my team right now. The one I was looking at and just trying to envision a path to actually getting touches, and obviously injuries will take care of a lot of this for us, was Devin Singletary in Buffalo. I know they have TJ Yeldon now, but I mean, we know TJ Yeldon's not good. And does LaShawn McCoy even want to play football anymore? Because he looked like dust last year.
Oh, is that a play on the Avengers?
No.
Is that why I said that?
No, it wasn't. No, he's just dust.
I gave you too much credit. Look, there's 2 things about LaShawn McCoy. Well, actually, to bring up what you just mentioned about Yeldon too, is they could still cut him. I mean, there's a non-zero chance that LaShawn McCoy is not on this team come week 1. Also, I think Frank Gore is the safest, but both Frank Gore and TJ Yeldon, $500,000 dead cap if they release him at any point between that just get rid of him. You didn't make it. We don't like what you have left. Again, I think Frank Gore's safe, but I see a scenario, to your point, where all of a sudden Devin Singletary becomes a flex running back because they got rid of McCoy and Yeldon. Now, obviously that's rolling the dice and playing a lottery ticket game here right now, but I'm willing to do that in the 13th, 14th round, is roll a flyer on Singletary, because if that were to happen, if we're drafting today and it's only Frank Gore and Singletary, now you're talking about a 5th, 6th rounder.
Yeah, and until Frank Gore gets 300 touches and you're like, well, what's going on here?
300 touches for 500 yards.
Exactly. And he'll be a very solid, and he won't miss a game. So by the end of the season, he'll be running back 25. And people are see, he was a good flex.
You're not wrong.
It happens every single season. Any other running backs you think that are worth discussing here, or is it we just don't have enough information yet?
No, I think that, Justice Hill at the Ravens, I do think that Justice Hill will be as in today.
How many running backs do the Ravens have? 20?
Kenneth Dixon, I don't think Kenneth Dixon's long for this world on this team. He's dead. I don't think he's long for that team. And to the point of Gus Edwards is Gus Edwards, but Gus Edwards is more of he's the backup now. Is if Justice Hill and they get rid of Dixon, what I was going to say is your favorite guy, Mark Ingram, is there. I think this would be the reverse of the Saints, where Kamara was the more valuable one. Mark Ingram was the less valuable one. They had their roles. They still have those roles. He would play the Alvin Kamara role. It just would be the lesser one as like a flex value. That's where some interest is in there. Mattison, of course, you got to look at Dalvin Cook with his injury history. Now they got rid of Latavius Murray. Mattison's the guy behind him. And then I think there's one other I wanted to bring up. Oh, Quadri Olson. You go back to the Devontae Freeman thing. Is Ito Smith? Yeah, he kind of looked okay at times.
Judge Ito?
Yeah.
Whatever happened to Antone Smith? Remember him?
Antoine Smith, yeah, the different spelling of Antoine.
Yeah,
it's actually Antoine.
He would have like 3 carries a game for like 75 yards. He would just break a big one every game at some point.
That is true. Olsen's another big dude that, like, if Devontae Freeman goes down, could actually surprise people. Like, you're not drafting him as of today, but that's just one to keep in the back of your mind.
All right, let's move to wide receivers. N'Keal Harry appears to be in the best spot, but maybe not. I would assume he's being drafted as the number 1 rookie wide receiver right now.
Actually, it depends on what draft you're in. Some might be McCole Hardman because people are just assuming he's Tyreek Hill. And like, okay, skill set, sure, but let's not discredit how good of a receiver and a good of a route runner and how well he fits that offense like Hill is. As a pure talent, everything else aside, like, yes, is he a big playability with Hardman? Yes. Does he basically, if you cloned Hill with lesser route running and lesser NFL skills, Hardman would be him, but that's the point. Is he's still a rookie, and there's still a chance that he and Demarcus Robinson split that second wide receiver opportunity. So there are people that are taking Hardman first, expecting him to be like, well, he's going to be at least a poor man's Tyreek Hill.
But we don't even know what the Tyreek Hill situation is right now. I prefer to pronounce his name like it's a question, and I'm kind of slow. So I'm just like, Cole Hardman? That's how I'm going to say it, I think, all season long. I'm workshopping that one. I feel like the peoples are going to enjoy that. But who would you take?
I feel like that takes a little too long.
Maybe. Cole Hardman? So it all depends on what we know about Hill. Like, what if we see that Hill gets 8 games?
First of all, I'd be shocked. Yeah, he's got to get at least 10.
Listen. Before we start, saying what we're going to be shocked and we're not shocked with the Tyreek Hill situation, there's still a possibility. It's like, oh yeah, 2 games for Tyreek Hill, or he's suspended for 18 years. Like the range of outcomes on these NFL suspensions are all over the map.
Okay, fair point. Yes, the NFL makes 0 sense. In my mind, I was like, hey, same team, just coming from the Kareem Hunt got 10 games, and that's why I was thinking that was the bare minimum. But you're right. Honestly, I shouldn't say shocked because it still is the NFL. So, yes, if Tyreek Hill only got 6 games, that's a huge wet blanket on Hardman and everybody drafting him. And I think that's why we're not really going to know until the NFL tells us what's going on with Hill of where Hardman should go. Let's put it this way, though. Assuming Hill is done for the entire year, I think you can make a case for Hardman. Now, is N'Keal Harry definitely in the better situation, safer-wise? 100%. And I love N'Keal Harry. Here's another, to go back to the other stuff from rookie drafts, is I had him as 4 wide receivers in my tier 1. One was N'Keal Harry. And the one thing I'll bring up, Pat, and I think this is what a lot of people are missing, is I'm sure you saw it, is a lot of people were saying, oh, Harry doesn't get great separation. There's 2 factors here. One, in college, if you watched Harry, he was thrown back into coverage a lot because of terrible quarterback play. The second part of it, that separation at the NFL level can always get overstated, is that only the exceptional really make a difference separation-wise. And I want somebody like Harry, who turns a 50-50 ball into an 80-20 ball, who makes those contested catches with ease. And, what does Tom Brady do at this point of a career? Not throw people open, because he doesn't anymore. So I love the landing spot for N'Keal Harry.
So Harry would be number 1 for you. You have Cole Hardman? Maybe I'll start talking like a caveman. Cole Hardman. Something like that.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one.
Maybe I should do a giveaway for that too. See who can come up with like the best way to say that name. Would you have him at number 2? Like if you were in Dynasty right now, or if you were just in straight up redraft, would he be number 2?
3. Until we know what's going on. I mean, honestly, like, to your joking point, what if Tyreek Hill's banned for life and he has to reapply, similar to somebody with baseball, 3 times PEDs? You have to try and get yourself reinstated. I think then Mecole Hardman is number 2. But as of right now, I have number 3 behind Deebo Samuel, just because I think Deebo Samuel not only fills a need in San Francisco, but I mean, Marquise Goodwin's Marquise Goodwin. He's a big play threat. You know, a lot of people got excited about Dante Pettis. I wasn't as high on Dante Pettis as some people. I know that Matt Waldman was really high on him. I think he was his number 1 and number 2 wide receiver. All of us aren't always going to agree on these type of things. I didn't have him that high. There's some people that were kind of in the middle of the road. I think that if you're looking at talent and fit and what Deebo brings to the team is his great ability to run routes and get that separation that I was talking about, like unlike Harry. And I think you put him with Garoppolo, still not knowing what's going on with Garoppolo. I mean, we haven't really seen a full season for Garoppolo at this point. I just also think this is a team that needs somebody like Samuel. So I have Samuel 2, Hardman 3, but I'm not going to say like they're so close that if you wanted to say Hardman, I'm not going to be like, oh, you're nuts.
Well, I mean, the good thing about Deebo, too, is that if he's actually good, we're just going to have just a flood of Friday gifts. Just here comes Deebo at the beginning of like every single week. I mean, I'm here for that. I can get behind it.
I used it when I did my pre-draft write-up. I used the snatching the chain and the bicycle gift in the article. Yeah. He's going to snatch chains. How do you not love that?
I think it's pretty good.
Did you know that?
I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I'm not going to lie to you. I like it.
Did you know that's actually where the name came from?
What?
Is Friday. That's where the name came from. His mom doesn't like it.
Really? He's named after the movie Friday.
Yeah, I think that's his nickname, if I'm not mistaken. So it was because of his dad, but his mom doesn't like it because of Deebo from Friday.
All right. So what about the rest of these guys? Like DJ Metcalf in Seattle, AJ Brown in Tennessee, Paris Campbell in Indy, Hollywood Brown in Baltimore. Like Hollywood Brown should be the number 1 receiver in Baltimore. I don't know if that does you anything, but he should at least get good market share, but it might be market share of 8 passes a game.
Yeah, so as of right now, there's a lot of questions. First of all, let's talk about Lamar Jackson real quick, because people have already written the book of like all of a sudden this guy can't pass. Well, one thing is, did you know his completion percentage was the exact same as Cam Newton's second season? So the guy can get better. And that guy has, and I say that.
Hold on a second. Like there is a little bit of a difference here. It's not that he can't throw. I think the Ravens were committed to, maybe it's because it was a midseason change that, hey, here's an offense that we're going to roll with that people aren't prepared for until they see it again and they can absolutely wax us. But I think his longest completed air yards pass was like 30 yards.
And that's fair, but and you're not wrong in bringing up that point. My point on the flip side was the fact of that he can grow as a wide receiver, and I say that they already wrote the book on him.
Quarterback. He's not a wide receiver. He's a quarterback, Jake.
Did I say wide receiver?
You did. That's the problem here.
Hey, well, you just said DJ Metcalf instead of DK Metcalf, so boom, and you're so exactly whatever. People knew. So point being is he can still develop. The Marquise Brown thing is my concern with Marquise Brown isn't the matchup with Lamar Jackson. It's the fact that he's coming off that injury, which has ruined careers of Liz Franks and everything that's going on with there. And he's still not 100%. He's still not even doing practices at some of the OTA camp things and certain drills and stuff like that's concerning to me. And I also say what you just brought up about that offense, and they didn't change it so much in the middle of the season, but also let's look at the wide receivers he had last year. They had made a committed like they're looking at this passing game and saying, we're making it better next year. They invested in Marquise Brown. They invested in Miles Boykin, who I thought was one of the most underrated wide receivers in this draft class. And that wasn't the end of it. They still picked up other pieces as flyers because they know they need to improve. So now you push Willie Snead down to number 3. And I think that you could see a nice season for Marquise Brown if he is healthy. I actually have him as my number 4 wide receiver in Dynasty. Miles Boykin, I also have inside the top 10 in Dynasty. If we do see some improvement from Lamar Jackson, which I am buying into.
Metcalf. DraftKings Metcalf, as we'll call him, just so I don't get confused.
I like it.
He's not spinning records at like 1 o'clock in the morning at some sort of EDM festival. So he's going to be DraftKings Metcalf. Like, maybe in Dynasty, I see it, but like if you interject him into the Seattle offense, which was reliant a lot on pure efficiency last year, that what is he really going to do week to week?
I think you're looking at somebody who has more value in non-PPR and is going to be touchdown based. He's going to be reliant on putting up touchdowns, but that's not a bad thing considering the void and the need on this team. Tyler Lockett does put up his own touchdowns, obviously, but they're bigger play touchdowns. They still don't have that. Who's your go-to guy? Like, take Metcalf off the team. Who's your go-to guy in the red zone? You're going to say David Moore? I mean, I'm on the page. I'm on the same page as most people saying that David Moore could be the best number 2 on this team over Metcalf, even as a rookie. But if you're looking at somebody, I go back to the N'Keal Harry thing. Of all of the bad about DK Metcalf and all the his agility and running the shuttle and all this stuff, they're not wrong. I said the same thing. There's a significant floor where DK Metcalf's not even in the league in 3 years, like a Darrell Green Beckham type of situation. That's the floor. That's a very similar comp that I continually to hammer to people. On the upside is he turns those, just like Harry does, those 50-50 balls into 80-20. So if Russell Wilson is out there scrambling a little bit because of that pocket, because of that offensive line, if he's looking for somebody in the red zone, I could see a scenario where Metcalf puts up 700-800 yards and 7 to 8 touchdowns as a rookie. And that's going to be frustrating fantasy-wise, though, because I see it being Deshaun Jackson-like in the fact that 1 week he's in wide receiver 15 of the week. So he's top 15 for the week. The next week he puts up 2 for 30. And then the next week it's 110 and 2 touchdowns. And then next week it's 40 yards. So I think that's what we're going to be dealing with him.
AJ Brown is in one spot in Tennessee, and then Paris Campbell is with the Colts. Do you have any strong feelings about these two? Because what does this do to Corey Davis in Tennessee? Delaney Walker is coming back. He might be decrepit at this point. I don't know, but he's gonna be back. And then with Campbell, is this just they don't have good receivers besides T.Y. Hilton, so obviously he has to do something?
Yeah, I actually really wanted AJ Brown to go to the Colts. Speaking of that, I'm glad he brought both these guys up. I actually have a bet with the Titans beat writer for The Athletic that AJ Brown is going to be their number 2 wide receiver this year. He's taking Humphreys, and I was already down on Humphreys because I wasn't seeing the target share that he just saw with the Buccaneers with Marcus Mariota in this run-heavy offense. Even with LaFleur gone, I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. AJ Brown was a tier 1 wide receiver. AJ Brown is a terrific talent. AJ Brown not only should be their number 2, you bring up Corey Davis. This might be Corey Davis's last chance with the Titans to be their number 1. Now, I don't think his career is definitely over. He's an amazing talent. He can be a number 1 on teams if he plays to his talent level, but they might say, you know what? If he gets outplayed by AJ Brown, which is a plausible scenario, they could decide, you know what, Corey Davis, we're moving on after next year where, AJ Brown is our number 1. So that's a scenario for him. The Paris Campbell, he's in a contest with Devin Funchess to be the number 2. Let's not write off Devin Funchess.
Or Ryan Grant. He's still there.
Ryan Grant. He got rid off by.
What about Dontrell Inman? He was there. He was good last year.
I don't even think he's on the team. No, he's on the Patriots now.
Oh God, draft Dontrell Inman on the Patriots then. That guy's gonna be real squirrely around the line of scrimmage.
The one I was going to bring up was I was a Deion Kane fan as a sleeper last year to be their number 2, but they said his recovery. Yeah, said that his recovery is coming along slow, and he might not even be ready until close to training camp, if then. So you can pretty much write him off. I could see a scenario where it's Funchess as the number 2, but Paris Campbell on his heels as the number 3, working a lot out of the slot is a big play option. I think Paris Campbell definitely has the opportunity, though, to push Funchess aside. Funchess is Funchess. Funchess is an oversized wide receiver, a quick tight end. That's really what the truth is. So it really comes down to between the two, I think the ceiling is with Brown. I think the safer floor is actually with Paris Campbell because of who he's playing with.
Maybe, but what's the scenario where somehow Campbell outscores Hilton, Ebron, and Doyle? Because with those tight ends there sucking up a lot of the touchdown equity too, that there's just not that many fantasy points to go around unless you really think he can make a leap.
I think it's more the fact is not only can he make a leap, we're still talking about Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck he's back to being Andrew Luck. He's throwing for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns or around there. So my question back to you is, in this conversation, a legitimate one. I lean towards he is kind of done at this point. How much are we holding on to that Jack Doyle is even a factor anymore?
If as long as he's healthy, which is a big if. That even if he's out there 8 games, not only does he take away from Ebron, but he just absorbs all of those 6-yard passes from Andrew Luck.
See, I don't know if he does anymore. And that's look, I don't have the answer. I'm just throwing it out there as I wouldn't be surprised as tight end heavy as this team has been in past years, especially with the 2. You remember every dang on year it was, oh, damn it, the backup tight end got a touchdown again. The backup tight end was Doyle before that. It was Swoop before that. It was Dwayne Allen.
I say last year it was Mo Ali Cox.
Yeah, it's always the backup. I could see a scenario where the Colts go into this year using more 3 wide, 1 tight end, or 11 set basically, and only 1 tight end on the field.
Well, if they have Devin Funchess on the field, they're using a 2 tight end set anyway.
They're using a 12 anyway. So yeah, hey, touche, sir.
So the last two, I want to talk about the Arizona guys just very quickly. You got Hakeem Butler with the Cardinals and a rookie quarterback, presumably starting with Kyler Murray. And then you have White Lightning or White Thunder, however we're calling him, Andy Isabella. Are these guys going to do anything? Like, you still have Christian Kirk there. You still have Larry Fitzgerald there. The renaissance of Ricky Seals-Jones has to be coming at some point. Like, do these guys have an impact year one, do you think?
Don't forget about the new Keyshawn Johnson too. They have him as well.
There's a new Keyshawn?
Yeah, and it's spelled differently.
How is it spelled differently? Please tell me that Johnson is spelled differently.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not.
Oh, that's too bad.
I was going to say it's Keesean, and the S isn't capital.
I see.
So it's like all.
I like that.
It's all over the place.
I see. You had the duh before like the names, then you had the l before the names. I'm here for key before like old names. It's a really a way to jazz them up.
Wait, did you say lo as in like Lil Jordan Humphrey, or are you talking about L-E la?
Like L-E la, like Garrett Blunt. Although Garrett,
okay,
the way that he spells Garrett isn't really a real name either, but like that sort of thing.
Are you on board with the Lil Jordan Humphrey for his name?
Absolutely. Anytime you can start inserting apostrophes, as many as possible, is really my entire take on the situation.
I told you what I wanted to name my daughter as a complete joke, right?
What, Key Jake?
No, M-A and this sign.
M-A what side?
The little wave thing. It's at the top left of the keyboard.
So, Maproximate?
Matilda.
Is it called a tilde?
Yeah.
I did not know what that was called. I'm learning today, Jake. This is good.
Yeah, there you go. So there you go. I'm the first one. This is like 7. Better like George Costanza. Nobody better take that from me. Matilda. So anyway.
I mean, I might be in the market for kid number 2 right now. I mean, I'm definitely stealing that.
Uh-oh.
She'll be the prince of the playground.
Look, I'm still single. I'm so far away from this that, yeah, you can have it. I gift it to you.
Yes.
Matilda Mayo.
Big win here for me. So the Arizona guys, what's your take?
So my take is everybody's underrating Christian Kirk and the fact that, yes, we still have to, like, there's a scenario where he comes back and he doesn't look like 100%, but people forget about how good Christian Kirk was and the fact that a lot of people last year had the misnomer that he couldn't play outside, that he was only going to sit behind Larry Fitzgerald. Last year, the plan was to even use him outside to get him on the field. So I think that people are forgetting that Christian Kirk has the ability to be their go-to person, but a lot is here. Like, there's no answers we have right now. Like, I can tell you my assumption. I could tell you as of today, I want Christian Kirk, then Larry Fitzgerald, then Isabella. And then I'm not a Hakeem Butler fan because you want to tell he's fast Devin Funchess. Like, he's slightly faster than Devin Funchess. That's who he is. People got hung up on his yards per catch and all this type of stuff. Look, Hakeem Butler is almost a dime a dozen wide receivers. Like, you can find another big-bodied wide receiver that does exactly what he does. They're everywhere at this point. Like the one Harmon that Calvin Harmon that the Redskins drafted. He's another one. The Jordan Howard of wide receivers. So in any case, Isabella is the big play threat, but it all comes down to Kyler Murray. It all comes down to what they do with this offense. Do they run 4 wide? Do they try to mix in 5 wide? And they all get involved. Who does Murray latch on with initially? Is he scrambling a lot? And now we're looking at, well, Isabella has more short game value. So as of today, I like Christian Kirk, but this is a scenario that I'm not going to tell you definitively is in place from right now.
Tight ends, we're not really ones to talk about rookie tight ends all that much, but you have the former teammates. You got TJ Hawkinson, you got Noah Fant. It seems to me like Noah Fant is by far the best fantasy tight end going into the season.
I would say yes next year. No this year.
Sure. Only but like, I could see him being tight end 10 this year, just because he's not going to block. He's only going to run routes. Denver could use some people to throw to. Flacco loves throwing to tight ends. Like, that's the connection that I'm making down the line here.
Well, and you're 100% right.
Like, Hawkinson's just going to block.
No. So you're 100% right. And the first thing of what you said, though, is he's not going to block. That's my concern with Fant. And I only bring this up because this is also something I specifically asked John Elway at the Combine. I said, you've been trying to address the tight end position for years now. Is that something in your offseason focus again? And in his answer, 3 times he said the word inline tight end. Noah Fant is not an inline tight end because of what you said. He doesn't block. My concern is that you're right. Joe Flacco loves his tight ends. Noah Fant is not going to block. He's just going to run routes. My concern is, does he get the full complement of snaps because of that? Is this going to be a situation where he's only out there 50% of the time because he can't block? And that's my concern. With Hawkinson, I actually think he's going to be on the field the vast majority of the time. And while he'll be asked to block, he's almost as good as Fant in the passing game. And we've seen that the Lions like to use their tight end. They like to use Eric Ebron a lot back when he was Eric E-Drop and somehow developed hands when he was with the Colts. They're going to go to him more. So that's where I'm with you. Like, I'm a little bit different. If I'm drafting as of today, I would take Hawkinson before Fant. If I'm in a dynasty, if I'm drafting next year, it's Fant, and it's not even close. But for this season, I actually think Hawkinson outscores him.
It probably ends up coming down to touchdowns. I think if we were talking about receptions and yardage, Fant would definitely win that. So I would take him.
That's where you are, PPR.
And I would take him over any format just based on the amount of work in the passing and the volume that he could potentially see with Hawkinson. Like, you're still talking about two big bodies on the outside with Detroit. Yeah, Golden Tate's gone, whatever. You still have Babytron on one side. You got Marv Jones. See, Marv Lewis, not coaching no more, but Marv Jones still on the outside. Like, if you think that Hawkinson's just going to be this like red zone threat who absorbs a ton, like, those two guys are huge bodies too and good red zone threats. The way that I envision Noah Fant here is that he almost plays like Evan Ingram does in New York, where he's essentially he's a tight end, but he's just the third receiver who plays out of the slot.
And you're not wrong, but if you do recall, until Odell Beckham went down, Evan Ingram's numbers weren't that great, and that's the only concern.
No, but also, I mean, as much as you love your boy Bayshawn Hamilton or even Cortland Sutton, none of those guys are Odell Beckham. None of those guys are even fucking Sterling Shepard.
But to the point, that's why I love Bayshawn Hamilton so much, is not just because of his talent, but because he fits Joe Flacco's short game, and that's the point. And again, all I'm good, like. Look, if you told me Noah Fant's on the field as much as Hawkinson is this year, I'm 100% with you. It is Fant, and it's not even close. I just go back to the concern of, is he going to be off the field when they're running, one running back, the 12 sets, if their running back is out there and they're looking for run? You got to be able to make it not so obvious so that they even take them off on some passing plays, because it can't always be, well, he's on the field when they're passing, he's not on the field when they're running. And so that's my only concern is the snap count.
Hey, quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, definitely number one.
Yeah, not even quite. I actually have Kyler Murray as number 12 quarterback, period.
Like, just overall this season.
Just 600 rushing yards is more than doable. Even if you give him 505 like a Cam Newton, he's going to be in the QB1 discussion if he only throws for 3,300 yards and 22 touchdowns. And he has the ability to do even more than that. So, yeah, I have no problem putting him right on the cusp of being a QB1.
Yeah, I can see that. Would you go Josh Allen or Kyler Murray?
I'm actually going Kyler Murray because of the teams. If you look at the two setups, the talent surrounding them, both offensively and defensively, the Cardinals are going to be on the field offensively, trying to play catch up, trying to pass, trying to do it. They're not going to be in any of the games. On the flip side, the Bills still have a good defense. Okay,
so what about like Drew Lock? Is Dwayne Haskins number 2? Like, and are these guys draftable in a redraft format, or are we talking dynasty only here?
Dwayne Haskins is easily my number 2. I think the Giants should have drafted.
You froze on the screen. You looked like an idiot. It was funny. Now you're fine.
I think that the look like an idiot part is without the freezing anyway. So,
yeah, well,
let's be honest. Yeah.
Happens.
Now you got me looking to see if I'm freezing. Anyway, Dwayne Haskins, to me, would have been a perfect fit with the Giants before they traded Odell Beckham, because he knows how to throw receivers. So actually, we didn't even talk about the receiver, Terry McLaurin, who he played with in college. I think he's a sleeper to keep late in drafts. Like, I'm talking, maybe you don't even draft him, but don't forget that he played with somebody and they need somebody to replace Jameson Crowder. Dwayne Haskins should throw for 4,000 yards and 25 plus touchdowns as a rookie. But the problem is he does not run. Like, he has a few rushing touchdowns, but it's kind of like, we're talking Peyton Manning and like, oh my God, the play was busted and I ran it in for 5 yards, and maybe not even 5 yards. So it's all going to be on his arm, but he's not draftable, to answer your question, of redraft, unless you're playing in Superflex. And then Locke maybe takes over at some point. The same thing with Daniel Jones. They're only in the conversation if something goes wrong with the lead quarterback, obviously.
Were there any other tight ends we should have talked about, like Big Irv Smith in Minnesota if Kyle Rudolph holds out?
Well, yeah, if Kyle Rudolph gets traded, Irv Smith will be in a conversation as a mid tight end too. Let's also remember, like, not to go crazy with tight ends. I'm not saying that to you, but people in general, the tight ends rarely perform because of the Noah Fant conversation. Is they need to. It's the hardest position of all rookies to acclimate to the NFL in front of. I even say quarterback because it's the blocking, it's the assignments, it's everything because you're on the field for so many different reasons. The quarterback's just going to be his quarterback. So tight end, yes, Irv Smith would be in the tight end 2 conversation. I wouldn't put him in the tight end 1. One other I'll tell you that nobody's talking about.
How about this? Can I throw out my guy that just I see a path to him doing well?
Sure, let's see if it's the same guy.
It's the most German name on the board. It is Jay Steinberger.
Oh, Sternberger.
Sternberger. There we go.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it that way because that's how I've been saying it too. I goes Jay Sternberger.
Well, he just sounds incredibly German. But
yes,
what if Jimmy Graham's dust?
I mean, is he not already? He's halfway there at least.
So you throw this idiot out of the field and Aaron Rodgers is throwing him the ball. That sounds like a good position to be in.
It is, but that wasn't the one I was going to bring up. But it is. But I think Jimmy Graham still has 1 year left of being annoyingly relevant. And I think Sternberger is more for 2020. Mine's Josh Oliver, because you want to talk about somebody in that Noah Fant, Evan Ingram. Hey, you're just basically a receiver playing the tight end position. That's Josh Oliver. Josh Oliver was actually the number 1 receiver for his team and treated as such at San Jose State. He was basically their top pass catching weapon. And he goes to a team, the Jaguars, which still don't have a number 1 wide receiver and need opportunities at the tight end position. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but to your point where, hey, we wouldn't be surprised if, like, oh, look, at the end of the year, all of a sudden Josh Oliver's, putting up some tight end 1 numbers from weeks 7 on. It wouldn't surprise me.
All right, so let's do this. Let's rank these guys. We'll do the top 12. So like a technical first round of redraft rankings for this year only. So clearly we have Josh Jacobs at number 1, right?
Yep.
And we're going all positions here. Who is number 2 on that list? Is it David Montgomery?
It's just like a minimal. Hey.
It is David Montgomery for me.
All right, so the flea market comes in at number 2. Now where do we go? Do we stick with running backs or do we go to wide receiver?
If it's just this year and not Dynasty,
yeah, we're talking this year only.
I would go Miles Sanders.
You would take Miles Sanders 3rd?
I would.
All right.
I don't love it, but I would.
All right, so then it would be N'Keal Harry?
Yes.
And then Mecole Hardman?
Yeah, and it potentially would be flipped depending on what happens with Hill.
All right, so that depends on... So that would be the top 5. It'd be Jacobs, Montgomery, Sanders, Harry, Hardman.
Yes.
Then where do we go?
I'm staying at... Wow. I was about to say... I'd probably go Kyler Murray.
Really? You would take Kyler Murray over the wide receivers?
Yeah, because I have him as a fringe QB1. I mean, the rest of the wide receivers, like I'm not going to say you're crazy if you want to take Marquise Brown.
I was going to say, you kind of sold me on Debo.
Oh, I could see Debo too. Debo, that's the one in my mind where I went, it was either going to be Debo or Kyler Murray. You can make the call.
I'll go with Debo here, just because I like the name, and realistically, I'm going to take a flyer on a wide receiver over a quarterback in redraft, at least. Like, I'm not against Kyler Murray by any means as someone that you can start at quarterback for the season, even starting week 1, if he starts week 1, which, I mean, he has to, right?
Oh, there's no question. He's starting week 1.
All right. So
I put my house up.
I mean, your roommates get pretty mad, Jake. If you just all of a sudden they're out on the streets.
Wait, I have 1 roommate, and that's only just because I have 3 rooms, and there's no reason to leave an empty room.
That's smart. Listen, that's how you make money. That's smart.
That's it. So for everybody out there, like, oh, you need a roommate? No, why am I going to not take money?
Yeah, who's leaving money on the table? I'm with you on that one. So I'll go Debo and then Kyler Murray. So then where do we go? Which Brown do we go with? Do we go A.J. Brown? Do we go Hollywood Brown? Do we go Paris Campbell? Do we go Noah Fant?
For just this year at this point, I would actually go DK Metcalf.
Really? I mean, I'm not...
The upside.
But I don't know really what the upside is. Like, I see the path to the upside. Unless he develops a modicum of consistency, I don't know when you're ever going to know when to play this guy. Like, if you say fucking best ball to me, I'm not playing in best ball leagues. I want to have to make...
I didn't say best ball.
But he sounds like a guy that people are like, whoa, he's going to be really good in best ball. Take him in the last... He's going to have these few big weeks. But in redraft purposes, you actually have to start these people.
You do. But if we get to week 1 and he's definitively the number 2 and playing as the number 2 in Tyler Lockett's old role. No, not the Tyler Lockett role is what he brings to the team, but the Tyler Lockett old role is he's the number 2 of this team. He's going to be deserving to play almost every single league. In a 12-team league, DK Metcalf as the number 2 for the Seahawks is starting every week.
I was thinking about making a bet with you. Who would I rather have for the season? John Brown or DraftKings Metcalf? I think I'd rather have John Brown. Metcalf.
We'll do it. $1.
All right. $1 then. $1 a gentleman's wager. I like John Brown in Buffalo. I have faith. It's the Josh Allen deep ball. And I don't know who the hell is going to start catching passes for Seattle every week. Like if it's not David Moore week 1, it could be David Moore week 3 or some random tight end we've never heard of comes along week 5.
Hold on. You say the deep ball. First of all, Robert Foster, talent-wise, should be the number 1 at this point for the Bills. Second of all, you talk about not knowing who's good. The Bills are the Jaguars now. They go, hey, we've got Robert Foster and Zay Jones. Let's go bring in the veteran duplicates of these guys and John Brown and Cole Beasley. So you want to talk about a team that who the hell? I would say there's a real, you know what? I'll just say it right now. I don't think a single Bills wide receiver ends up with more than 800 receiving yards this year.
I think that one of them will. And I think that one guy, unless they have to go to Denver to play because he can, because he has the sickle cell trait, it will be John Brown. If not, I guess it's Robert Foster.
Yeah. And, but I mean, do you want to put money on that one?
What? Foster versus Brown?
Yeah.
No, not really. I'm gonna plant my flag with John Brown and just go with him. I love Smokey. Smokey's my guy.
That's fair. I want nothing to do with the Bills wide receivers. Unless I got Robert Foster in the 14th round last night. I'll definitely do that every single time. I want nothing to do with them and almost nothing to do with the Jaguars. Like I'm not paying the DD Westbrook price. I'm not.
Oh, I actually have DD as a 12th round keeper in my keeper league, so I'm pumped about that.
And that's fine, but he was just where did he go last night? And I was shocked at how far DD Westbrook went in the 8th round last night. Like, get the hell out of here.
I feel like that's a fair price for him with a quarterback who can actually throw the ball. That sounds great.
Okay, in front of Deshaun Hamilton, DK Metcalf, QT, Deshaun Jackson, Golden Tate, Tyrell Williams, N'Keal Harry. I'm not taking. There's a couple that I would take him in front of, but half of those I wouldn't. I'd probably take McCole Hardman in front of him too, who went after him.
I think that I would go. I would take Westbrook over everyone on that list except for probably Golden Tate.
No, because remember last year, and I know he got hurt, but everybody's like the Keelan Cole. They love Keelan Cole.
Yeah, but they do two completely different things. Like Keelan Cole is just there to stretch the field. At least with DD, they throw underneath routes to him.
Well, that's fair, but they have 15 wide receivers this year.
This is true, but DD probably return kicks too. You get those extra touches per game. He's so fast.
You're thinking DraftKings now. They get the double down.
Of course. So we got Jacobs, Montgomery, Sanders, Harry, Mecole, Hardman, Debo Samuel, Kyler Murray, Noah Fant, DK Metcalf, because I'm putting Fant ahead of him. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I would still take Hawkinson in front of Fant. So that's
well, I would not. I mean, you can check out your rankings on The Athletic. I'm allowing you to help me make my rankings, which are probably
that's fair.
And everyone know my rankings are terrible. So this is the way that we're going with them. So who's next? Hollywood Brown?
No, I would. Wow. I mean, I guess if you're rolling the dice today, I'm going to go for the upside and hope that Marquise Brown's healthy. So I would take him.
So Hollywood Brown, then we're going to Zutelor, the Frenchman, Paris Campbell.
Well, do you have AJ Brown yet?
I don't have him on yet. But you said you like.
I would go.
You said you liked Paris, didn't you?
Yeah, but they're neck and neck. I wasn't sure if you liked AJ Brown. I could flip a coin on both of those. That's one of those ones where I don't purposely diversify, but I would on those.
Yeah, but we get into a situation here where not knowing what the rules are going to be, just give me the guy, as you mentioned earlier, the guy with Andrew Luck throwing him the ball, or not the guy on the team who just exclusively wants to run the ball with a terrible quarterback.
Who has a terrible quarterback that's probably drafting one next year.
So that's 12. Is there anyone else?
Get 12?
Is there anyone else that we should consider on that list?
I mean, I'm taking flyers on Darrell Henderson, obviously, but
you are.
Not over.
But in a redraft, would you take Darrell Henderson over? Is it Darrell or Darrell?
I still haven't found out. I keep asking people.
All right. So would you draft Henderson in a redraft over Hollywood Brown?
Not over Hollywood Brown, no.
Would you do it over AJ Brown?
Probably. Yeah. Just because of the running back upside at that point.
Over Paris Campbell?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move him to number 11. We'll knock A.J. Brown off the list.
The thing is, I've actually even watched video where they call him Daryl, and then I've watched video where they call him Darrell. And it's like Terrell Owens is the one that screwed this up for everybody. Everything was fine until he was trying to tell people to pronounce his name differently.
All right, if we talk Dynasty then, and we just kind of switch up the rankings, who are we looking at number one? It's still Jacobs number one in Dynasty, right?
No, N'Keal Harry.
Really? What happens?
I'll take N'Keal Harry.
What happens when Brady dies of old age?
That I'll worry about that later on. And by the way, the Patriots, have we not seen them make no names? Like Matt Castle had a career because of the Patriots. They just turn quarterbacks good.
But Brady, when Brady leaves, Belichick's going to leave too, and I worry about the infrastructure that they have in place. I do, yeah.
I don't think he does. I kind of think Belichick is kind of like, if you told me if I had to pick one, and it was like, does Brady win without Belichick, or does Belichick win without Brady? I'm taking the Belichick side of it.
I would take Belichick too, but dude's like 70 years old. Like eventually he's going to retire.
Is that old?
Yeah.
Is he that old?
Let's see. Bill Belichick, I thought he was. Bill Belichick is 67 years old.
All right, so he's still got another 8 years. He's going the Tom Coughlin route. He's going to die on the field just like Tom Coughlin.
Like Tom Brady's going to play another 3 years until he's absolute dust, and then Bill Belichick's going to be 70, and he'll leave too.
I will take N'Keal Harry for that and roll it's wide receiver too. In a dynasty, I'm always going to lean wide receiver when I can.
I guess this kind of goes down to what do you actually want out of dynasty? Yes, at the utmost, like potential wide receivers are going to be good for a longer time, but I feel like people look too much into that the instant impact a rookie can make even in year one in a dynasty league, that I still think that if you think that Jacobs is the guy that can make that sort of impact and be a top 15 running back year one, and maybe he can improve off that going forward, I still think that makes him worthy of the number one pick.
All right, that's a valid argument. I'll take it. But and to give you a flip side of things, just from out there, I've seen and been in dynasty drafts where people have taken Miles Sanders number one. There's all sorts of arguments out there.
That seems like people getting a bit too cute.
It's the hype. That's going to be different this time, Pat. It's going to be different.
What are the chances Royce Freeman's a better running back than Phillip Lindsay this year?
I'd say 30%.
30, 40%. Like, it's on the table, though.
It's certainly on the table. He was supposed to be last year, and he never got out of his own way. And then similar to Ronald Jones, kept getting hurt and banged up and just really couldn't get traction going.
Did they draft anyone?
Who?
Tampa.
No, that's so you can look at it two ways. And I got so many shares of Ronald Jones in like the mid-late rounds because they didn't draft anybody. They brought in what's his face that was with the Cardinals, and then they cut him almost like 3 days later. I can't think of his name right now, but anyway, and they didn't even pick up anybody in undrafted free agency unless they did something late afterwards, like a week later that I didn't see. So you're telling me one of two things is this team's either saying, hey, you know what? Let's not write off Ronald Jones yet. We spent a high draft pick on him last year. Let's see if he has anything. Or because Bruce Arians likes pass catching running backs, and that's not what Ronald Jones is. He just really likes Peyton Barber, and maybe we should be drafting Peyton Barber a lot higher than we are.
Yeah, if Peyton Barber's just going to be... Doesn't that feel like a spot for Ajayi?
Yeah, I could see that. I feel like it's a spot like this backfield is not done.
Yeah.
And when it's not done, it's going to be a headache.
All right, so dynasty-wise, I'll go Jacobs, then Harry. After N'Keal Harry, would it be Montgomery, or would it go wide receiver?
I would go Montgomery 3.
All right, then who would you go with number 4? Would it be Mecole Hardman?
No, it would be Debo.
Oh, you think Debo's that good?
I do think, and similar to your point, and this is why I said it was a very good point, is now, so the next 4 are wide receivers for me. So they're so close in their long-term projection that I'm going to take the person that I think has the biggest immediate, and that's Debo.
All right, then you would go
Hardman, Hollywood, and then the other Brown.
Really? And you would have Paris Campbell way back after that?
I have Paris Campbell at 9. I have Miles Sanders at 8.
Okay. So that's how you have them. Where are we putting like the tight ends into this list, knowing that it's dynasty and having like really you would have Noah Fant behind all these guys?
Yeah, it's still tight end. I have Noah Fant at 10 and Hawkinson at 11.
I don't know about that. I think I would want. I really like Noah Fant. I want to move him up.
That's fine.
Let's put him.
You're not going to get me to disagree. You know Emery Hunt. We were texting for the longest time about it. We were laughing at mock drafts that had Hawkinson higher and talking about the talent, and that Hawkinson came on late in the season and looked blah blah. It's like, have you watched these guys? When you talk about pure pass catching and an offense, Noah Fant is definitively better.
Yeah, but I mean Hawkinson's the better tight end, like the guy that you would want on your team. But if we're talking fantasy, it's not him.
Right.
Yeah, then there's a line you need to draw here. So what do we do with like Kyler Murray, DK
13 for me.
Really, you wouldn't roll the dice on Kyler Murray evolving into like a top 4, top 5 quarterback?
No, I have because I think there's a significant. I think look, we didn't really go into it, but let's be realistic about Kyler Murray. Like I'm one of the people that agree with like height's so overrated.
No, I would say that he's a 2 outcome player. He's either going to be really good or incredibly bad. I don't think there's a middle ground for him. And
I'm with you because it's not just the height. I mean, watch Drew Brees. He stands on his tippy toes sometimes. And they said they're going to run a ton of shotgun, which makes sense. I mean, shotgun has been proven to be more effective anyway in the NFL these days. But the truth is about Kyler Murray, it's not that. It's his body mass. And it's the body mass of if he's running around. And I said 500-600 projected yards is an easy number for him. Hell, a season like Robert Griffin's 800 plus yards is within his ability because of who he is. But his body mass does matter when you're talking about that size and weight and getting killed in the NFL. That's like, and then you add in all the other factors. And that's why if you need a quarterback, you're going to draft them higher anyway, because you're going to draft quarterbacks higher if you need that anyway. But if you're on a team where, like, let's say you're set and you've already got somebody that's young and, you know, I don't know, like, middle of the road quarterback in the top 10. Like I was going to say Cam Newton. I don't know why I can't think of it. You have Andrew Luck. And your backup is somebody like you took a flyer last year on somebody with upside like a Jameis Winston. You're not going to care that much about Kyler Murray. But if your top quarterback is Tom Brady, maybe you take Kyler Murray before the group of wide receivers and throw him in there after Hardman.
All right. So for my dynasty ranks for this year, I'll go Jacobs, Harry, the flea market, Montgomery, Debo, Mecole Hardman, Miles Sanders, Hollywood Brown, Noah Fant, A.J. Brown, Kyler Murray, Paris Gamble, who smokes a long cigarette, and T.J. Hawkinson. That leaves Darrell Henderson and D.K. Metcalf on the outside looking in of the top 12.
And that's fine because I have Metcalf at 12. I have Darrell Henderson at 16. I actually have Kyler Murray ahead of them. I had Dwayne Haskins right there with Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, I don't think I'm super interested in a quarterback with no weapons that doesn't run, even like 3 years from now.
They got him some weapons. I'm telling you, McLaurin, pay attention. Take him in your drafts, in your deep drafts.
Who is it again?
Terry McLaurin.
Terry McLaurin?
I don't know why I put a Irish accent on it. Maybe because of the Mick, but
yeah.
Terry McLaurin.
Terry McLaurin.
Laurin.
Oh, McLaurin. Okay, I see. That makes more sense. McLaurin. He's a potato farmer. Yeah. He's going to be scoring the touchdowns. Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
He's filling the Jamison Crowder role. They played with each other last year.
Oh, super. The Jamison Crowder role. He'll be healthy for 3 games.
No, because he could actually stay healthy. And the great thing, what I was saying about before about Dwayne Haskins and why he would have fit so well with the Giants when they had Odell Beckham, is he throws receivers open all the time. He is so good at keeping receivers in their momentum. And you talk about that already having the rapport with McLaurin and what he turned. Let's be realistic. McLaurin should probably thank Dwayne Haskins for turning into what he did last year to a degree. I just think that I think he's just being very overlooked.
That's fair. I can get on board with that. What about Deontay?
I mean, what are we going to do? Josh Doxson and Paul Richardson?
Ryan Grant? No, he's not there. He's on Indy.
No, why are you trying to put Ryan Grant on 15 teams?
Brian Quick is who I'm thinking of. I feel like he's still on the Redskins.
Really?
Brian Quick was like the man like 5 years ago for like 3 games.
No, Brian Quick's the man sometimes within the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season that gets everybody excited and then disappears and gets hurt.
What do you make of Deontay Johnson for the Steelers?
Love him as a flyer if you're in a deeper league, or hell, if you really want to sit and stash right now, take him in the 13th, 14th round, because I don't think he does surpass James Washington, because I am a big James Washington fan.
Could he surpass Dante Moncrief on the outside?
Not even that. He could get past James Washington. He could be the number 2. There's a scenario where Deontay Johnson is the number 2 for the Steelers this year. And if that's the case, it's the Steelers. It's the Steelers offense. It's Ben Roethlisberger throwing for 5,000 yards. That's going to be valuable in all leagues. Even if he's the number 3 and James Washington's the number 2 and Moncrief just has nothing at this point. Or maybe it's the flip. Maybe it's Moncrief's the number 2 and James Washington just is a complete bust. Whatever it might be, even the number 3 we know in this offense has some value. So I think he's one that people should keep on their radars as well. I was going to bring him up, but I wasn't sure how much time he had.
Yeah, well, we got to get out of here right now. So, Jake, at AllenKid on Twitter and the Instagrams, tell everyone where they can find your work and listen to the podcast.
At theathletic.com, yes. And the All in Sports podcast is still on all the good stuff, the iTunes, the Google Plays, and Stitcher, blah, blah, blah. Those are out on Wednesdays. Tuesdays and Thursdays is Sports Unsealed. That's the Athletic Only podcast with your boy, Chris Meany, and side-arming pitcher, Brad Ziegler. So, great. Hey, we have our football kit coming out next month in the middle of June already.
That seems early.
Everybody, there's going to be a draft kit next year that comes out in May. Watch. Not ours, but I'm just telling you.
That's great. You can write it all in May, and then you'll have to revise it all in July. Then you'll have to revise it all again in August.
Everybody's got to be first to the punch.
Yeah, I'm like I said, kid gloves for football, dipping my toe back into the water with this. I appreciate you coming on, helping inform the peoples and myself about a lot of these rookies. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the PME. The 3 ways to get into the draw. If you forget, rewind all the way back to the beginning and go check those out. 20 DK bucks on the line. Winners announced on next Monday's show with Jeffrey Feinbergo. And that'll do it. Thank you all for watching. Thanks to Jake for being here. Let's get ready for some football. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!